So, Formula 1 is in Abu Dhabi this weekend for the final race of 2022. It kind of feels a bit strange that the season's already coming to an end. I'm not sure how we're going to cope with 3 months without Formula 1 after this weekend, but there is still quite a lot left to be decided in 2022. Of course, Red Bull have sewn up both championships. We've known that for a long time, but there is still, some different hypotheticals that could come into play this weekend out in Abu Dhabi, of course, that might, give us some good storylines as we head into 2023. Now, of course, like I said, Max Verstappen, dominant out front. No one can beat him in the championship, of course, but right behind him, and the big talking point this weekend, is, of course, Sergio Perez and Charles Leclerc, tied on 290 points apiece. Charles Leclerc has 3 race victories this year to Sergio Perez's 2. So Perez, if they were to tie on points, unless he won the Grand Prix, Charles Leclerc would win the World Championship. Of course, Perez can't tie with Leclerc in the World Championship if he wins the Grand Prix, so if they tie, leaving Abu Dhabi, Charles Leclerc will claim runner-up in the Drivers' World Championship. However, if they were both to crash into each other, and the same race driver, won in Brazil, wins again, that of course being George Russell, he could actually jump them both if he took fastest lap bonus point as well, which I think would be the most George Russell thing in the world. Never P2 throughout the entirety of the championship, and then suddenly edges out Charles Leclerc and Perez by a single point in Abu Dhabi. Further behind, Lewis Hamilton could still jump George Russell, but he would also need to win the Grand Prix with fastest lap and hope that George Russell doesn't score. But then Carlos Sainz is only 6 points behind Hamilton, so there is still quite a realistic battle for P5 overall in the title race, and then also P2. George Russell's looking pretty locked in now to P4, and he will become, I think, just Hamilton's second or third ever teammate, it must be third teammate ever, to actually beat him come the end of a Formula 1 season. Further back down the rostrum though, Lando Norris is pretty much, he's completely set, even in P7 overall, a very good year from the McLaren man. I think a bit underrated, to be honest, this season. Alpine, Fernando Alonso could still outscore Esteban Ocon come the end of the year. I think a lot of people forget that Ocon is still beating Fernando at this stage, but 86 to 81, there's no arguing who's been more unlucky this year, but we know we could see Alonso still finish ahead of his French teammate before he heads off to Aston Martin next year. Further down the rostrum, of course, you could get any sort of chaos, if you've got an unlikely podium or something like that, pretty much anyone from 10th downwards could jump multiple cars in front of them. Of course, just Nico Hülkenberg still yet to score in 2022, although that's very unlikely to happen unless something happens to someone else. But Drivers' Championship-wise though, still a few sort of high-profile battles going on. But I think, we're probably not going to see too much movement. Personally, I think this weekend Charles Leclerc is going to get the edge over Sergio Perez. I think Perez is going to come in quite angry, and I just don't think Red Bull are going to get it right. So I think although Ferrari have struggled a bit more in recent times, I think Charles Leclerc is going to do it. I also, however, believe that Hamilton will stay ahead of Carlos Sainz. So I think we're going to probably hype it up this weekend, and we're going to see no movement between anyone inside the top 10 overall in the championship, and it's kind of going to be a little bit anticlimactic. Constructors-wise, though, there is plenty still to play for here as we head into Abu Dhabi as well. Now, of course, once again, Red Bull are clear out in front. 19 points, though, separate Ferrari and Mercedes this weekend, as well as another 19-point gap between Alpine and McLaren. There's also the battle between Alfa Romeo and Aston Martin, and technically still as well, Haas and Alpha Tauri could swap positions as well. Now, 19 points between, I'm going to close this out quite simply, between Alpine and McLaren. I don't expect there to be a miracle run for McLaren here. Alpine, I think, have done enough to lock out P4. Lando Norris has done incredibly well this year to even make it as close as it's been, but McLaren probably could have had P4 this year had their second driver sort of felt a lot more comfortable in the car. I also don't believe we're going to get a jump between Mercedes and Ferrari. I think Mercedes will still outscore Ferrari this weekend, but I don't think they're quite going to get close enough, and Ferrari will hang on by just a couple of points come the end of the year. Further down the roster, I think Alfa Romeo now, they've come on a little bit stronger in the last couple of weekends. Aston Martin have had good pace as well, but I think, a 5-point deficit for Aston Martin might just be a little bit too much to overcome this weekend out in Abu Dhabi, and I don't honestly believe Haas or AlphaTauri are going to score points either. So I'm kind of predicting a bit of an anticlimactic finish to the year in Abu Dhabi. Let me know your thoughts and feelings down below as well. Of course, there is still plenty to play for, like I said, but I'm just kind of not expecting any miracle turnarounds. You know, Abu Dhabi is not really a track that delivers crazy results. Of course, it's always been at the end of the year. You don't get changeable conditions. It's often pretty anticlimactic as a Grand Prix anyway. But yeah, let me know down in the comments below whether you think we are going to see any movement in the World Championship. Of course, like I said, the big one, Leclerc and Sergio Perez, I think, especially, of course, with what's gone on down at Red Bull over the last couple of days as well. But yeah, like I said, let me know, and hopefully Abu Dhabi can deliver, hopefully, a good race this year rather than just a controversial one.